Hey, all right. This is John Park, and I'm live now. Hey, how's it going, everybody? That was a little jam for you all. Welcome to the show. It's John Park's Workshop. It's me, John Park. I'm here in my workshop, and thanks for joining me. I'm going to do a little check-in on the chats. Looks like we've got the good people of Discord are here. I hear that Noe is going to be in the chats as well. That is excellent. And I'm going to just tune in to my YouTube as well so I can hop on there. That always takes a second because the show has to go live before I can... Oh gosh, and let me not give you an echo. Hold on. Turn that volume down. Good. And we've got beeps and overlays. Good, thanks. All right, excellent. So I am excited for today's show. What's going on? First of all, I'd like to give you an update on the Pocket Operator Arcade Briefcase that I was working on last week and prior. Last week was a fun lesson in me screwing up a soldering job. So after the show, for those of you who weren't watching, I was putting together some NeoPixel rings, and I had a pretty unfortunate solder blob shorting one of my rings on the first, one of my pixels on the first ring. So wasn't getting any light after I got that put together, but fixed it and reassembled those. So I'm going to show you the assembly job there. I'll take it apart a little bit so you can see what's what. Oh, here goes a helicopter. And what else? I have running on there right now actually some code that I'm working on, which is using the new 0FFT library. So that's a fast Fourier transform. And I'll show you a little bit of that, but I'm probably going to put that back together with a more appropriate microphone. I'm using a little analog mic, but we have a PDM mic that's actually going to, according to Dean Miller, who is at Adafruit, an engineer who is my hero because he's been saving me with this FFT stuff, which is tricky. Signal processing stuff is tricky. But what it does in general, in a nutshell, is the FFT library is able to pick out different frequencies within the sort of wall of sound that's coming at the microphone and characterize or measure the frequency's strength or the strength of the waves in different sets of frequencies, which allows us to do things that are a little more interesting than your usual VU meter, which would be just based on the overall sound pressure. Instead, with the FFT, I'll be able to trigger different colors or different pixels when bass notes are playing versus mid-tones versus high frequencies. So I'm excited about that. So I'll give you a little quick preview and demo of that. And I am then going to get us started on a fresh build, which is a secret book alarm project. And if you couldn't tell from the music, which has a little bit of a spy-ish theme, we're starting to get ready and gear up for AdaBox 007. So I'm starting some sort of spy-themed projects, including today with the secret hollow book. So no further ado, let me switch over to the bench cam, and then I'm going to have a little look on the insides of the Pocket Operator briefcase for you. First, I'm going to choke to death on some iced coffee. Hey, Noe and Pedro, I see you guys are in the chat. I just saw them pop up in Discord. And all right, here we are. So this is the Pocket Operator arcade briefcase. And you probably can't see, just due to the brightness in here. I'm going to give this a shot. It's interesting. I found that my refresh rate on this camera is very close to the refresh rate of these NeoPixels. And so sometimes they don't show up at all. But let's try for a second. All right, there we go. So what you can see here, oh, now it's faded out again. Okay, I'm going to switch over to the down shooter because that's what I was noticing earlier is, strangely enough, sometimes the refresh rate on those syncs up so well with the camera's refresh rate that you can't see a thing. So let me switch you over to this down shooter. Now the down shooter, I'm going to just cup my hands when I show you stuff because this one, the touch screen on it, isn't letting me change the exposure. All kinds of equipment shenanigans today. So let's see, you can see this is a mostly high, I can block the light. This is mostly high-end sound, so we're getting the outer pixels and some of the inner pixels, but not really the inner ones, the middle ones. And now you can see more of these blue ones in the center, hopefully are lighting up. Turn on a chorus drone. So you might be able to see that. We get different effects depending on the frequency range of the sounds. So anyway, that's a little look at where that's headed. And I'm excited about that, but it should get better as I figure out a little bit better how to use the data that's coming out of the FFT library towards the visualization on the NeoPixels. But now, actually, I want to show you just what that speaker assembly looks like in the back there as promised. So let me switch over to this camera and bring the exposure back up. There we go. And I'll zoom down in a little bit more. So just pop this off. I don't have an outside switch for it right now because I'm powering it from this LiPo through the feather here, so I'm going to just turn that off. And set this here like so, and I'm going to drill down even a little further for you. So what I did, I've got right now this microphone, which is what's picking up the sound. And unfortunately, just due to some of the internal switching on the Pocket Operator, I can't have an external speaker playing while I have anything plugged into the phono out. So I can't really easily do a line out into the Feather to capture those frequencies. So instead, I'm using this microphone. And I'll be switching to a better microphone for this purpose. So here's my speaker. And what I've done is I've actually put some large-ish M4 screws through the acrylic from the front. And you know what? I just want to pull up the chat in the YouTube. Let's see. Is this the new one? Yeah, it is. All right. Is it showing me chat? Where do they hide the chat on this? I got to click on it and then make sure my volume is down to the minimum. I do have the split screen working again on my iPad. I figured out the change they made. They gave us one way and then they updated and changed it out from under us. Okay, good. Here's the chat. Here, yes, no, where'd you go? There it is. Yes. Is it all the way at the bottom? Live chat. They've hidden it. There it is. Hi. All right. Zethalon64, I am the chat. Cool. So, back to this. So I was just checking this to make sure that you guys could hear me and weren't yelling about a camera being missing or something. So speaker on M4 screws that come through the front, and then I have a few standoffs. I'm actually using heat set inserts because I was running out of other M4, let's see if that'll focus, other M4 nuts. So I've got a couple of these threaded M4 sized heat set inserts. And now here's my set of NeoPixel rings. And that's the limits of that focus. Hopefully you can, or that zoom, you can see that. So ring, ring, and then jewel. This is the soldering that I had the problem with last week, so I fixed that up. And then what I've done is I've taken a little bit of this, is actually a nylon or some other synthetic material that I use to diffuse light in the workshop for photography and video purposes. It's actually a shower curtain liner, and it's a cheap way to get nice light diffusing stuff, and it lets sound through. So that's what I've put between the speaker and the grill, and I've actually got my NeoPixels adhered just with double stick tape to this so that they're not touching the speaker cone. So that's the update on that. Let me put this back together. And let me know if you have any questions or thoughts on that, but the main updates that I'm planning are to switch out the mic for the PDM mic and work on that software side of the visualization. And then I'm also going to, I think, drill a hole for an external power switch. And the power switch that I'm using actually is the enable pin and ground on the Feather M0 that I'm using there. That effectively turns it off, but you can use a tiny switch for it and cuts power. So there we go. Oh, and the other thing I've got poking out here, if I zoom out a little bit, you'll see, is people have been asking about these little slots here. These are actually for plugging in phono cables. So when you do want to go out to headphones or an amplifier, oh, sorry, show that there. This is why I have these cutouts, so that I could fit cables in here, and you can sync to other Pocket Operators by coming in like the ones you saw at the beginning. But what I have poking out right now is a USB panel mount extension, and I would like to recut the acrylic to fit that nicely, or possibly the wood on the side, so I can plug USB in from the side either to reprogram the microcontroller or for power. All right, so that's the update there. Let's get that out of the way. Let me zoom this out, and I'm going to swap cameras for that and do that one for the overhead. So now on to secret book project. So there's a couple things that we're gonna do with this project. We're going to create a hollowed out book, and we're going to do a couple interesting things with software and electronics hardware, and even an old phone. So if you've never made a hollowed out book before, it is a ton of fun. It's a great project, and you can do it with some pretty simple supplies and tools. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to see if I can boost the camera over here. This is the one that, there we go, I'm going to brighten this up just a little bit. That's the one that overheated last time, and I haven't done anything other than move the little LCD that sits flat against the back. I've cracked that open a little bit, which is going to allow some a little more airflow to the chip inside. Hopefully it doesn't go on the fritz. We'll deal if it does. And eventually I'm going to put a fan back there or a heat sink on that camera. So there's a few different ways to do the secret hollowed out book, but the basic idea is, first of all, sorry, a book has to die to do this. So go to the library. If your library has a little store where they sell used books that they're taking off the shelves, they're usually anywhere from 25 cents to $1, or go to a thrift store. These were some books that we had laying around that we were going to donate and don't want anymore, but now I'm using them for this cause. So the basic idea behind it, the procedure for this, is to use some glue, either white glue or Mod Podge, to seal up the edges of the pages, and usually you'll leave a few pages free at the beginning just so you have a cover. So these will all get glued on their sides. You let that dry, and then you mark out the area that you want to cut, and you can cut that either with an X-Acto, although that gets a little tiring on your fingers. Better is a box cutter or utility knife. And I'll also show you a technique that I've used before, using an oscillating saw, which makes really quick work of it and is kind of fun. So what I'm going to do, I've done a little bit of preparation so we can do somewhat cooking show style. I'm also going to give you some tips. So first of all, I've got some Mylar here. This is Mylar I've used for making stencils before. Use either that or some saran wrap to block off the first few pages that you want to leave uncut. So I'm going to go to chapter 2 here, and I'm going to stick this piece of Mylar in here, and I'm just going to cut this down to size a little bit. I've just used some scissors for that, actually. And that will just keep us from accidentally gluing stuff we don't want to glue. So let's switch cameras, actually, to big O vision there. Small, oh, hey, that's the wrong one. There we go, hello. So let's trim these sides a little bit too, and then I'm going to use some tape. I'm actually leaving a little bit of overhang so that we don't have to worry about glue getting up on to the front cover. It's not vital, any of these steps. This is a very forgiving project. So let's take some blue tape and just tape this to the cover so it doesn't slide around. Like so. And we'll do it at the bottom as well. If we can find the front of the tape. There you go. So one of my goals for today is to try to not lean my head forward in front of the camera so much. I was looking at part of last week's video and some other ones. And it is something I do. When I'm looking at stuff, I get up close to it. Okay, so that will keep this front section protected. And now what I like to do is clamp. Again, not necessary, but it'll just make it easier. There's a few things about doing this that'll make it a neater project, and one of them is clamping things nicely as you work so that they dry straight and flat. Let's put one in the middle. What you can do is actually glue and then clamp in some places so that the brush can get there. So I'm using a little stenciling brush, a little hard, short bristled brush works well for this. And I'm going to use this Mod Podge. I actually don't know what Mod Podge is other than smelly glue that works really well for decoupage and other paper-related things, but it really stinks. I don't know, what's that about? Why is it so smelly? Someone tell me, what's it made of? I don't think it's as innocuous as white glue, which is like made from flour or horses or something. So I'm not worried about, I actually like to glue the back cover to the spine a bit. And we can go back in if this doesn't hold entirely. You can go in and put some glue between the back cover and the last page, and that just gives the thing a little bit of rigidity. So what we'll do is glue here, and I'm going to go through this, like I said, a little bit cooking show style, but hopefully we'll end up with at least one finished book. So there is one that I did earlier, this step too. And we'll probably switch over to that one to do the cutting step. So you can really blob it on, because what you want is for the paper, except for the cover here I keep getting, you want the paper to, let me zoom in a bit. You want the paper to really absorb that glue beyond just the surface. It's nice if it gets in there a little bit deeper. So I'm going to slide that clamp over and move to this. I've also, you can see, just to keep my bench top slightly neater, I've put down a little piece of MDF, a little 3mm or 1/8" MDF sheet, because I didn't feel like working on newspaper, and I didn't really want to be getting all this glue off of my bench later. Now, let's try to keep that in view for you. So I don't know if you actually need ventilation with Mod Podge or not. I don't think it's bad for you. It just smells. Maybe that's just me. Am I the one who doesn't like the smell of Mod Podge? Please answer in the chat. Mod Podge has a, oh, craft glue and varnish. There you go. Thank you, Matambale. That's what makes it fragrant. Yeah, that's the varnish. And I don't know if there's different flavors of Mod Podge. This one claims that it is a gloss. I don't know if that's what all Mod Podge is, or if there's also matte finish. Matte finish might be nice for this project. I happen to have gloss here because my daughter uses it for a lot of projects, and she likes shiny stuff. Okay, so you get the idea. Now I'm going to just finish clamping this up and then set that aside for about a ½ hour is the idea. So I'm just going to set that over there. And rather than have us wait a ½ hour, I am going to, let's set this Mod Podge aside, move to this one. So this one I made about 40 minutes ago, maybe an hour ago. I did the same thing, clamped it, let it dry, and then peeled back. I actually didn't use the Mylar, I just used tape, and that's why I decided I should use Mylar in this case. Often people will suggest like saran wrap or something else like that. But now this is a nice solid chunk here. It probably could do to dry more. You can also rub off or peel off any excess. I have a little bit of excess here. So now what you do is you decide what you want your safe to look like, the hollowed out section. So what I'm going to do actually is, we'll see if we have time later for let me switch cameras here. We'll see if we have time later to do the Circuit Playground Express alarm. So what I'm going to start with is the Haven application. So this is an application for Android phones that was developed by, I forget the developers, but they consulted with Edward Snowden, the NSA whistleblower, on this project. And the idea behind it is that you can take an old Android phone and put the application on it, tune some settings, and it will act as essentially an eavesdropping device or an alarm to warn you if someone is in, let's say, your hotel room getting ready to put a rootkit on your laptop. So the idea is you can set the phone somewhere and it will wake up and record audio when the noise reaches a certain threshold. It will detect motion and then record a bit of video, and it can SMS text or through Signal send you the warning that something has happened. I'm not sure if it actually will send, I think you can even have it send the image or the sound. So what we're going to do is embed it in the book here, and the idea for this one is maybe less of a evil maid attack, which is what that scenario has been called. No offense to maids at hotels, but the idea that someone in a hotel could sneak in and do something regardless of how good your electronic security is or your digital security. Less along that line and more along the, hey, I'm going to catch my younger brother sneaking into my hollow book alarm kind of idea. So what we're going to do is we're going to embed the book in the space that we have here. And I'm not making, there's no hole looking through for the camera or anything. It's more just a kind of a fun idea. But you get the idea, and it gives us a target for creating our hole in the book. So I'm going to grab a pencil, and what I recommend is using, you could do this freeform, but if you want it to be neat, you can use a T-square or some other measuring device that'll give you a nice right angle. So we'll go here, and how about there? I'm not going to bother making this, trying to make this a perfect fit. And let's go up, let's say 2 inches is where we'll mark that. Let me switch cameras for you. And so 2 inches over here. And what did we say was our top? We'll do right to there. A little flaw here is that I can't get this square all the way across the binding there. But that should do close enough. So what I'll do is I'll start off, I'll show you how you'll do this just with a sharp box cutter or other knife. And then I'll show you the fun power tool technique. Wow, how did I get that so crooked? Does that look crooked? What happened here? No, it just looks crooked. Or the bottom isn't cut right. That's going to bug me. Let me get a ruler that'll fit on there a little better, actually. Better. All right. This is why I'm not doing a woodworking show here. Close is good enough. So what you can do, actually we'll grab that ruler again. Typically the way you'll approach this is now cut out the hole just by doing it a few layers at a time and pull all of the pages, pull all those cuts through so that you can remove a whole section and then work your way through. One thing, by the way, I'm sure people are at different levels of experience with cutting stuff, but one thing that's very helpful with this type of cutting is to always move the thing you're cutting to accommodate the easiest, safest stroke for you. So in this case, just this pulling action is good. So you'll see I'm just going to move the thing around rather than, you'll see sometimes people will cut here and then they'll go and they'll cut and then they'll cut up. So you want to kind of make the thing you're cutting do the work for you and put it where it's most convenient. That applies in the kitchen as well. Life is a lot easier on a cutting board if you're doing prep, if you move stuff around. So here's the idea. You now remove a few layers. Make sure your cuts are all the way through. I've never done it this way, but I've seen some advice to drill 4 corner holes, which makes it a little easier because the holes are already there for you. Maybe we'll try that on one side. That might be fun. In fact, let's do that now. Let me grab a drill. Let's try that now, just on one corner at least. So we can try all the techniques. And here we go. I've got about a 1/4 inch bit on there. Let's see what happens. So we just want to make sure we don't go all the way through, so don't go down too far. Yeah, see, I think that's going to tear It's a pretty sharp bit, but oh, okay, it's working pretty well actually. Let me show you. Let's see that on camera. I'm going to zoom in. Let's get in good and close. Sorry for the wobbly camera. So I'm going to hold this kind of unsafely at an angle here so that you can see it. Yeah, it drills pretty well. Pull that out. And so now that's, yeah, you see the idea is as you cut now, take my own advice and move this, as you cut now, and you can start to use the previously cut paper as a guide, you have, you don't have to overshoot that corner. Again, it doesn't matter too much. This doesn't, I'm not doing this to look like fine woodworking. But that does make it easier. That's kind of nice. And that you may be able to press that flat. You can see it kind of turns the paper up under itself because of the twisting motion of the drill. So let's cut that layer out. You can see that's what I'm having to do. You missed that. What I'm having to do when I get to the corner to try to make sure that I don't undershoot is I do a little rocking motion. Like that. And that comes off pretty neatly. So blow off some of the... Now here's another fun way to do it, which is, zoom out a bit, with an oscillating saw. So I have a Dremel Multimax, they call it, but there's a few different brands, even a Harbor Freight one at this point I think you can get. And what happens is, we'll see if you can see this, when you pull the trigger on this thing, it's going to vibrate that saw back and forth just a few degrees. Oh, do I have a dead battery? I do. Or do I? Yeah, it's blinking. Hold on, let me grab another battery. I have mostly dead Dremel batteries in my life. It's really something I need to change. So we'll see. I might not have enough juice to go through the whole book with this, but all right. Here we go. So hold that up to where you can see it, and I'll put a little reflection on it. Come on. There we go. You see that? You can probably see it at least get blurry. So that just vibrates back and forth, and I've got a fairly fine tooth blade on there. Let me put on some safety glasses, and pardon the loud noise, but I'm going to go just, the idea with this is I'm just going to plunge, and we'll see if you can see. You should be able to see that on the camera. I'll zoom in a bit. There we go. Again, sorry for the wobbly cam, and here we go. All right, we'll see how we did there. Sorry, that's really loud. I should put on some earplugs myself. So you can see it kicks up a bit of dust. I'm going to blow that off. And now we can pull out a pretty significant section of our safe. You want to be mindful of not tearing if you find a spot where you miss. Because you can see I'm just plunging, overlapping plunges, since I have a pretty narrow blade on there. So if I feel a little tension as I try to pull out a section of this paper, I'm going to just go in there with the knife and finish the job rather than tearing it. And then we'll blow off some more dust. So again, this is kind of overkill and not as neat as if you want to just take your time at it with a knife like this. It doesn't honestly take maybe more than 25 minutes or something like that to do it neatly with a knife. But it is an alternative if you are in a hurry, for whatever reason, to make your secret safe. And you could, of course, go back in with the saw as well if you haven't gone deep enough. You just want to be careful about not going through the back of it. So let's, oh look, let's reveal the secret of this chessboard. That's coming out too. All right. So I'm going to go I think that's deep enough for the phone. And I think I'm going to do another one later just for a circuit playground and battery that'll be a little deeper. So you probably want to clean this up a little bit, even just pulling away the dust, because we're now going to glue that. I'm going to choke to death on paper dust. So you can see our phone is going to go in like that. You know what? It's not deep enough. I can feel this is up above, so let's take out some more. And I'll do it the old-fashioned way. You can also, when you get to a corner, I can zoom this camera back in for you. When you get to a corner, just flip it around and come pulling it down again from the other direction so you're not. You can get the point a little further into the corner there like that. How's the chat doing? Manual labor and immediacy satisfaction. Throw it on the CNC. I love that, guys. You know, there is a thing called a drag knife that you can put on a CNC. It's meant for like vinyl cutting. I wonder if you could take a bazillion little steps at a paper book like this. You could probably also sort of impregnate the paper with a resin and then really carve at it with a proper end mill. This is kind of a fun project for kids too. I know libraries and schools like to do it sometimes when they have an activity and they do have old books they're getting rid of. Again, please don't write me with your anger about, let's see, is this popping open because of, no, okay, that's good. I think, so what I've got is just a little bit of a lip you can see there on the inside, and that's from my Dremel tool. You won't have that. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to glue that and then try to clamp that down, again with some Mylar to keep it from sticking to this page. We're going to try to clamp that down. I might even put a little thin piece of wood on there so that this gets glued and stays down. And I think, yeah, that's close enough for this. And we could potentially pull out more if we had to. So now what we'll do is we'll grab l'image de page, and you're just going to paint it on the insides. It's okay if it gets on the bottom. I'm actually going to dress that up a little bit with a piece of felt, which in this case might bulge it out a little too much for the phone. So I would recommend, if you're not in a rush like I am doing this live on video, make it deeper than you think you need, just so you don't have a suspicious bulging cover. And it's okay if it gets on this page, on the top. We can seal this up a bit, especially because we're going to use that Mylar to prevent it from sticking. If you aren't, that's okay. You would end up with this page stuck to it, and then you could trim it out neatly. That's actually a trick I have used before, where I put the next page on top and then cut that very neatly with an X-Acto. Let's get some more blobbed in there. It's okay to be fairly generous with the Mod Podge. So I think I'm going to leave that to dry before I put felt in the bottom. Okay, so now let's zoom this out for you a bit. We will take our sheet of Mylar, set it in like this. I think this will be enough pressure to bend those little lip edges back up. So what I'll do, let's see, it might be good to clamp this in a vise with a couple pieces of wood on either side rather than just with the edge clamps. So let me switch cameras here so maybe you can see a little better. Actually, can I? Yeah, we'll leave that. Sure, we're going to double vision there for a second. So I've got a bench vise right here, if you can see, and I'm just going to open that up a bit and get some blocks of wood. Let's see, what do I have that is big enough? Here's a piece of plywood. That just happens to be pretty close to perfect. Let's see if I have another lucky scrap lying around. Let's wander around the shop for, there's one that's buried under some stuff. How big is this? That's a huge piece of MDF. That won't do. All right, I'm going to, ideally it would be 2 pieces of plywood. I'm going to stick a little 2x4 piece. Oh, that's not bad. Here's a scrap of plywood that's the length of the book. I'm going to put that diagonally there. And you know what? This vise isn't that big. It's not that deep. So either I'll go over to my other bigger one under the drill press, or I'm going to grab some clamps that'll work well for this. Let's do that. Never enough clamps. Here's 3 of these ones. These will work pretty nicely. Yeah, so best bet would be for you to put it in a big vise. But I'm going to use this. That'll be better than what you see a lot of times if you look up instructions for this online. People say, put a stack of books on it. Well, a stack of books is probably fine, but in my case, I've got some bent pages there I need to fix, and so I'm going to get a lot more force out of these clamps. Them down pretty good, and I don't really have a deep one around. Okay, that should be good enough. Right there, we'll put that aside. Oh look, I've got, okay, so since I didn't have a proper piece of wood, I've got that popping up, so I'll take this one last clamp and get that taken care of. Another scrap would be good there. Actually, let's do that. Is this scrap small enough to fit my, yes, it's just. There we go. Okay, so now you want that to, let's get one more over here. Of course, I'm out of those guys. I don't know where all those guys went, but here's a pretty big spring clamp I'll put on there. Nice. All right, so you can see no edges are buckling anymore, so I'll set that over here to dry. And let's see. So let me switch over to my computer in a second. And clamps on all outside corners and 4 inside corners would be sufficient for integrity, right? Yeah, I think that's more clamps is right. Oh, thank you. Noe mentioned that we have a discount code today. So let me pop that up, and then I think we will take a crack at our alarm. I'll be building that from scratch. But first, there is our, whoops, coupon code today, Dewey. And that'll get you 10% off of your order. So head on over to adafruit.com, check out the new cool good stuff. And there's some pretty neat, I don't know if it's out, if we have it in stock yet, but there's a pretty cool new board that I'm interested in, which is, what's it called? What's the new board? Someone help me. It's a sort of a next generation Trinket Pro, but it's called, what the heck's it called? Help me out, someone. I'm going to the Adafruit store right now to check myself. And it's going to be the Itsy Bitsy. So the Itsy Bitsy M0. I bet someone found it already over in the... Thank you, yeah. So that looks like a cool board. It lives sort of between the Trinket M0 and a Feather M0, and it's only like $12, I think. So I'm excited for those. Are they for sale? Do we have them for sale yet, or are they still in waiting status? Let's see. Coming soon, we say. Okay, that one's going to be pretty cool. I like the looks of that one. Okay, so let's head back on over to Wirecast here, and we'll go to a main cam. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try to make this book alarm using make code, because that's easier to explain, I think, than doing it in Circuit Python visually for the purposes of the show. So let's go to, hello, that's me. And let's make a new browser window, which I'm going to give you a new screen share of. Screen capture. Pardon me while I build this window. No. Why is it saying? Oh. Window, select window. So this will be Chrome, new tab. Okay, okay. All right, and I'm going to move that over a bit. Okay, so what I'm going to do is head to makecode.adafruit.com, and we can actually test a lot of this with the little simulator before we put it on the board. I'm just seeing in the chat someone saying still not working. Oh, was that link not working? That's weird. If you just go to the store and head to new products, you'll see it. Adafruit.com/new. If you want to always stay up on what's happening, just go to that. That'll get you all the freshest stuff. Okay, so let's see. What we want to do is create a input, which is, how about on shake? And we don't really need a forever loop. This is going to be so fast, I hope. This is famous last words. Music. How about we'll play, let's just play one of our sounds. I think we have a siren sound. Siren. Okay. Where's my simulator? We could not run the project. Check your code for errors. What's going on? What is this thing's going on? Let me switch over to JavaScript and back. Sometimes that will. Huh. Let me try it in Firefox. I don't know what just happened. Let me know in the chat if you see something obvious I'm doing, but for some reason that make code didn't load properly. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop that piece off. Let's do new project and see if it's happier. So yeah, see the simulator. Oh, here it comes. Yay! The simulation. Okay, I don't need Firefox for this. Good. So let's do that again. I'm going to say that I have an input, which is just going to be on shake. And we can make that be any tilt, so it doesn't have to be a violent shake. I'm not sure which will be the most sensitive for this, but let's try it as shake for now. And like I say, well, I'll leave that there. Now I'm paranoid. And we'll do music, alarm, play, sound. Let's see, if we do power up until it's done, I think that might be easier to repeat. So that I can test right now. I'm going to turn up the volume on my machine so that maybe we'll hear it. All right, did you hear that triumphal thing? Excellent. So that is the sound that it's going to make when this gets shaken. And that one's easy to test because in the simulator there's this kind of button that says shake. I think we'll do a face up so that when you pick up the book, if it's on a shelf and go to open it, then it's going to make the alarm. So now what I'm going to do is take a Circuit Playground Express, and this is one that has part of a case that I printed that Noe and Pedro made, actually, one of their cool cases, except I think it was made on the Circuit Playground, and my Circuit Playground Express didn't fit it exactly, so I just flipped this to the back, so I just have kind of a neat little cover here. They've probably updated it since then, but I did that in a point in time when it hadn't been updated. So I'm going to plug this guy into USB, and now, let's see, I'll give you I'm going to make a new Finder window so you can see what's going on here in case you're new to how this stuff here works, including I'm going to probably have to put a new, I'm going to have to put the make code flash on here because this Circuit Playground Express I had running in Arduino. So I'm going to make a new capture window for a second, and I'll capture this Finder. Capture a window, select it, Finder, okay, and I'll move this over. Okay, so the steps here are, first of all, I'm going to go to my downloads folder and just see if I have the latest Circuit Playground Express make code UF2. I can't even remember what its name is, so let's download it. So if I think if I hit download here, it might give me, oh, this is all I need, right? Yeah, I just need this. So when I download, this is my sketch. I didn't name it, so it's just called Circuit Playground Untitled UF2. I'm going to save that to my downloads folder. I think you haven't in the past been able to save that directly onto the Circuit Playground Express. So I'm saving it kind of intermediary stage into here. And then I'm going to double click my reset button on the Circuit Playground Express, and we should see a new drive show up. I say we should see, there it is. So cplay boot, that's our little bootloader that we have, a little piece of flash RAM. So I'm going to drag Circuit Playground Express Untitled UF2 onto that cplay boot. And now, let's see, this guy is going to, let me hold it to my microphone. So you can see he's going to make that sound whenever it gets tilted. So that's our alarm. Now, we can probably try something that's a little more alarming sounding, and ideally something that goes on and on and on forever. But that, let me detach that from here and go over to my hollow books. Let's give a down cam here. That would be the idea for making your secret alarm book. So here's one that I made earlier. Oh, this thing keeps yelling at me. And I didn't glue anything on this, so it's actually not a proper book safe yet. But I was just testing a couple different ways of cutting it. And you can see I've put a little piece of red felt in there. So this is going to yell. And so there's the, let me switch cameras again. There's our book. And now you can hear that's making the very quiet alarm inside of there. And that's the idea behind that. Now we can use, this has the accelerometer built in, which is what we're using, but we have little tilt sensors that are a very simple little switch that you can add to kind of any project. Could be an analog circuit project, could be any of our other microcontrollers, and then you can put loud speakers and amplifier circuits into there, kind of do anything you want just based on that tilt. But the idea is once you have a secret book, you can not only hide things in it, but you can also either get a notification when someone's snooping around in it, or even better, get something like the Haven app running on an old Android phone so that it really alerts you. Or you could maybe even hide this behind the book, so when the book gets pulled out, you get a nice little picture of the person who's taken it out, SMS'd out to you in the world, knowing that someone's snooping around your stuff. So let's see, that was definitely not a half hour, but I'd love to see how the book has come along. I can hear my little book alarm going off in this other one. Let's turn that off. Yes, 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 you're a very active alarm. Very proud of you. So what was that, 10 minutes or less? Let's see how it did. I actually don't know what Mod Podge claims for its drying times. Let's have a look. God, that's tiny writing. What does it say on there? Let's put on some glasses and look. That's not in English. There it is in English. Yeah, 15 to 20 minutes between coats. Apply thin coats. Yeah, 15, 20. So let's see how it did in half of that time. It's okay, we're not going to put any huge strain on it. And hopefully our clamping overcame So you can see our Mylar saved that from getting stuck. Let's see if the Mylar wants to come off the pages or not. We can just cut it and have a shiny spot in there. Yeah, it comes off. Okay, well that's good. I'm getting a little tear in one spot. That's not it tearing now, that's the sound of the edge coming out of the little spine where I shoved it in too hard. Okay, we got one little tear there, but that's okay. So not quite dry everywhere. It's dry here, but it's not quite dry where the, oh, let me give you a camera view, sorry about that. This is shiny, you can see that's what this shiny Mod Podge varnish looks like. In here it's still a wet, but that's okay, because I'm going to put in our little piece of velvet now. And you can cut that with scissors or with your box cutter. I'm going to be a little careless with it and just eyeball that up against the edge in the interest of time, but you can definitely do a little nicer job than that. Let's take a little off the side. Have I kept my promise and not stuck my head in? I think. We'll see. We'll find out later, or you can tell me. Okay, so that's just going to stick to the Mod Podge that hasn't dried in there yet fully. I'm just going to push that down a bit. All right, and there we have our lovely secret book. I saw C. Grover was making some comments about the Kings of New York, about the chess playing thing. I didn't read this, and now it'll be a real pain to read it, won't it? I might have to read an online version. Someone asked about, hey, let's hang out in the chat a bit. So that's what I've got there for that project. There's your secret book. A lot of fun to do and very easy. So questions from the chat. Someone asked about switching cameras. Noah said John likely has someone help the switch. I'm doing this without assistance, other than, of course, the assistance of people in the chat, which is super helpful. But I was actually remarking to my wife earlier that right before the show, it's kind of like the beginning of the Muppet Show, except it's just me. I'm like running around like crazy trying to deal with lights and turn on mics and set audio levels and write a little song to play. So it is just me, and so in order to, and I like it, I'm not complaining when I say that, but in order to deal with cameras, this is a project I made, I don't know, maybe a year ago or so, less. It is based on a tutorial by the Ruiz brothers, Noe and Pedro, which is, I forget what the project is called. It's probably like Arcade Button HID, Arcade Button Keyboard. And what it is, it's using a feather. I have a feather M0, I think, or do I have a trinket? Yeah, I think it's a feather because I have more buttons than the trinket would probably allow without like multiplexing. So each of these is a input into a feather running CircuitPython. And the little CircuitPython program is simply sending HID commands. So it's like Command-Shift-M is telling my switcher software to go to a different view. So that's the main cam, that's the overhead cam, and that's my little down shooter. And then if I stay on those three for that bottom layer, I can then switch between the three little views above that. So that's all I needed for, I could add a few more buttons without it becoming too cumbersome software-wise, because I think we have, I don't know, maybe 10 inputs available on the feather if you use the analog pins as well as digital ins. So that's what I'm using if you're curious. And you can go check out the link that Noe and Pedro put in. Case in point, they are awesome. I love having people in the chat because that really helps. Thank you. Arcade button control box. Super cool. Very fun to do HID things with microcontrollers. I did a project maybe a year ago that also used, a thing that I really like is that the 32U4 based microcontrollers as well as the M0 based microcontrollers all can do HID keyboard, which HID stands for human interface device. So they can look like a USB keyboard to any computer. They can look like a USB mouse to any computer, so you can plug them in and have them move cursors around for you. And they can act as MIDI controllers. So I had built a project that I called the PZ1. It's a pizza box DJ controller, and it uses conductive ink, and I made a stencil to paint out like turntables and a number of controls that you'd use in DJ software that mixes two songs, allows you to cue and cut in and beat repeat sections as well as scratch even. And so that's just using a Circuit Playground, and it was an Arduino program that I wrote, and it's talking MIDI over HID. So those are kind of the three things that any M0 based microcontroller pretty much that you'll find anywhere, definitely in the Adafruit store, as well as the 32U4 based microcontrollers. They all get to talk HID, which is really cool. And so that's what enabled this arcade button project for my camera switcher. And it's also, oh look, I've doubled up on two views here. And it is also what Noe and Pedro wrote to do this button box arcade project that you'll see up in the link in the various chats on Discord as well as on YouTube. I know they're there. I'm not sure if they're over on Twitch or Facebook. or Twitter, or yeah, Twitter's Periscope. But so that is that. Once again, I want to remind you that the coupon code for today that'll get you 10% off in the store is DEWEY, D-E-W-E-Y. So check that out if you're thinking about getting one of these things. And so DEWEY, I'm going to switch back to Facecam. Hello. And let's go to the chat. So I'm going to make yet one more screen capture window that will capture the Discord. And I will talk chat there as well as YouTube chat. So let's head over to a window. Select monitor. Where is my Discord? There you are. Boop. Whoa. Did you hear that? That was the make code thing going bananas. Let me move this over. Oh, thank you for the library reference. Yeah, it makes more sense now, right? Dewey. As in Dewey Decimal System. So, I'm going to scroll back through the chat a little bit, and let me also bring up my YouTube. So someone was asking about comparisons of boards. Is there a video or a post anywhere comparing all the Adafruit dev boards, sizes, and what applications they are best for? That's from Gangstead. I don't believe we have a roundup like that, I'm sorry to say. There was a boards issue of Make Magazine last year, I believe, that compared a lot of boards, and I think some of the Adafruit boards were in there. That would be a great resource. I can tell you my my thinking on boards when I'm looking at projects and how they break down for me. I won't be able to name them all off the top of my head, and some of them have lots of variants, like the feathers, right? So we have the feather line. It's an ecosystem, and there's like 52 add-ons that can go on it. So there's feather wings, which are like shields, and so ignoring that, the feathers themselves, there's about, I don't know, 6, 8 different feathers based on different chips, but the big ones that I think of usually are the M0s, which I love. They have a lot of space and they're relatively fast. There's the ESP8266 based feathers. There are 32U4 based feathers, and there's the NRF52, which is the Bluetooth based Nordic semiconductor chip. That one's super cool. Actually, I have a project coming up on that I'm going to work on, I think, maybe involving MIDI. So then, oh yeah, so someone pulled up the Make Magazine comparison of boards. That's worth checking out. So Feather is like powerful, and that's the same as sort of like a Metro board and a sort of full Uno-sized Arduino. They have all of those capabilities. So when I think about a board that has to do a lot, I think first about a Feather because it's going to be smaller than a full-size Metro or Arduino Uno, but has pretty much the same capabilities. It's all 3.3 volt, so that can be an issue for some things. If you need 5 for something, you might want to use the full-size Metro. And the battery charging on board, the fact that the Feather has a LiPo charger on board is actually a huge help when you're doing portable projects, because then you don't have to think about how am I going to put batteries in this, how am I going to get the batteries out of it. I do it all over the place. You can see I did it on, where's my little button box thing? Oh, I've lost that one. It's up there now. But you can see also on my arcade briefcase, right? I've got a Feather in there, I have a LiPo plugged into it, and then I have a USB port available so I can charge the thing. I love that about it. And then things kind of go smaller from there. So we've got the new Itsy Bitsy, which sort of takes the place of the Trinket Pro as far as bigger than a Trinket, smaller than a Feather. Those are going to be very cool, but right now you've got the Trinket Pro in that size. It just only runs on a 32U4, I think, right? I think that's the only one that the Trinket is on. Or is it a smaller chip than that? It might be a smaller chip. Then we have the regular Trinket M0, and it's very small, excellent board. It runs CircuitPython, it runs Arduino. And then we have the Gemma, which I'm doing a lot of stuff with these little Gemma boards for some of our upcoming stuff. And these have only really 2 or 3 usable ports on them, but they're round and cute and small, so I like those. Am I missing anything? Those are kind of the main ones that I think of. I'm sure we have other stuff I'm not thinking of, but those come to mind when I go, how am I gonna drive the smarts of a project? Those are the ones that I will tend to think about. And then you have sort of on the small computer side of thing, you have the Raspberry Pi and Pi Zero. But for microcontrollers, that's kind of my version of that. I hope that's helpful. Can the arcade board also have a mixer slider added to it? I was thinking of using it on thumb and arcade buttons on the fingers. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, there's no reason why you couldn't. So just because I'm so in love with this project, if you ask me about it, I definitely will open it up and chat about it. Briefly, because I know we're just about out of time, but I'll just hold it up right here. So you can see these knobs up here. I'm going to hold that with my head. So these knobs, hey, these are 5K potentiometers, and there's no reason you couldn't use slide potentiometers. I actually tried out some force sense resistors, which was pretty cool to play those. They kind of return to, unlike a button or unlike a potentiometer or knob, they'll return to a resistance value when you don't touch them. So you can kind of tap them in different areas to play notes. Some of the pocket operator stuff will change pitch based on that resistance value, but it needs to be about a 5K. And so you could use slide potentiometers for that. As far as mixing goes, I don't have any mixing going on right now, so I'm just relying on the way that the pocket operators sync up to each other. You can send a sync click track on one channel and a mono audio across the others. So I've done 4 at a time sync to each other, and it works well. You just adjust their own individual volumes. There's like a little range within each of them where you can mix their volumes. It would be nice to get a passive mixer, like a little small Altoid tin kind of mixer. That would be pretty cool too, so that all of them go into there and you can individually mix their volumes. That'd be pretty cool. Oh, Noah Troutman says that he added a Itsy Bitsy to his cart, so that's available now, huh? I think that's the next thing I'm going to do after the show is go get one. Oh no, Noah and Pedro, their power went out and they have 3 printers going. That stinks. I'm sorry to hear it. Someone asks, what would be the best Bluefruit compatible board? I like the Feather M0 Bluefruit. That one's great. That's what I used in my lightsaber project, where I was using the phone Bluefruit app to control the NeoPixel color of the lightsabers. That's very good board for Bluefruit compatibility. Yeah, we don't have a Bluefruit Metro, right? I think you would use a Bluefruit breakout board on a Metro if you're looking for something larger. But honestly, it's less and less often that I'm reaching for a full Uno-sized Metro or Uno. All right, cool. Let's see, any other last words from the chat? You know, I'll hang out in the Discord chat after the show, so you can head on over there from YouTube if you want to keep talking, because the YouTube chat ends when this ends. If you are over, oh good, I don't see any chat in Facebook, and I say oh good just because we don't want chats in a million places, but it looks like no one's there chatting. So thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed the Secret Hollowed Out book project, and keep your eyes and ears peeled for more secret, cool, spy-ish stuff this month. And in honor of that, bring back some music for you. There we go. All right, well, I'm John Park. Thanks for tuning in to John Park's Workshop on Adafruit Industries, and I will see you next week at the same time. Bye-bye.